Hello everybody, welcome back to Ash's Glitter Factory. Today I will be reading Chapter 9 from the Grimrose. Chapter 9 is called Nane. Go ahead and get started. Nane didn't unpack in that first week she was at Grimrose, and she hadn't seen her father either. She talked to some of the security guards, and yes, he had been the head of security, but that was before the school year started, and they hadn't seen Isaiah since. Her father told Nani that he was working here for the past year in the school, and now that he'd sent her tickets and she had to study here, he was nowhere to be found. She'd sent a letter to his last known address, but it came back unopened. If one thing could be said for the Swiss Post, it would be that it's efficient. It was the only reason she'd accepted the invitation. She thought he wanted to see her. Nani had flown halfway across the world to find her father, but now he wasn't even there. To make things worse, she had to stay at Grimrose, and she didn't know how she'd begin the search for her father. Maybe he didn't want her to find him. So when Friday night arrived, Nani was almost thankful to attend the mandatory school assembly just to distract her a little. The students belonged to a very different world. There were the uniforms, of course, but also the shoes, bags, jewelry. Everything spoke of a privilege and wealth that Nani had never seen before, meant only for the best of the best, the elite of the elite. That's who Grimrose was meant for. That's who the magic was built for. Not some poor half-black, half-native Hawaiian girl like Nani. Her father told her about places like this. It was the stuff of storybooks, like the ones he'd brought her from his trips, so she could read he'd delight in the pages when he went away again. He'd promised to take her to the places he saw when he traveled, to show her the entire world. He'd promised, and now here she was, and he wasn't there with her. Nani sat down in the amphitheater next to her roommates and their friend Ella. She hadn't talked to them, but still, they were the only people she knew at the school, and it was better than sitting alone. Students crowded in different groups, some as young as 11. She wondered what kind of parents would send such a young child to boarding school, to be seen only once or twice a year. It didn't take long before the headmistress took the stage, climbing the stairs and standing in front of the microphone. She was younger than Nani expected. Golden brown skin, and her dark chestnut hair swept aside, a ruby pendant gleaming at the base of her throat. Her dress was well cut, and she stood with her back so straight that Nani hadn't realized before that there were muscles capable of holding something so upright. This has been a turbulent start of the year, Raina's voice rang out through the microphone. The tragedy, the death of one of our beloved students, took us all by surprise. She paused for a breath. You are safe here. Your safety is a priority to both the institution and me, and so is your education to the old students and the new. I hope you all make the best of what the Academy has to offer. Lux Vincier Tenebras. Nani didn't recognize the last words, but they were repeated back by the students, the Latin hanging clear in the echo of the room. She spotted Miss Blunstein along with two other older teachers side by side with Rena. As she left the stage, Nani recognized Miss Lennis from chemistry, and she assumed they were all members of the Teachers' Council. That's Miss Bagley from cooking class, Ella whispered to Nani across the row of girls. They're basically the free teachers you can go to when you're in trouble. Nani had lived with Tutu long enough to know not to trust all old women to be kind and generous just because they were old. Tutu's sermons still rang in her ears weeks after she'd stopped talking. Miss Blumstein took the stage to explain some of the curriculum, and after her, a white girl their age took the stage. That's Alethea, Ella explained. She's the head of the student committee. Basically, they just plan the events, Rory said. Alethea is a snob, but at least she knows how to throw a party. She's not a snob, Ella said. She's just a little touchy. Touchy? Rory exclaimed with a snort. Remember the pillow accident? That's what you call touchy? Could you not defend everyone at the school for once? I don't defend everyone. I just think you're being unfair. Saint Ella, just patron of the bullied. Shut up. Rory's teasing laugh was louder now, and a few heads turned. Yuki stared straight ahead, apparently pretending she didn't know them, something Nani found relatable. Alethea cleared her throat in front of the stage, waiting for silence. We're following tradition this year, Alethea said with a smile that stretched across her whole face and looked wholly unnatural. We'll have, of course, the big ball to celebrate the end of the school year in June. We're also throwing another holiday party to celebrate before winter break. This year we'll do a masked ball. Students started whispering excitedly, Ella murmuring something right away to her friends. Nani closed her eyes and ignored them. She couldn't care less about stupid parties. She never attended them back at her old school, and she wasn't about to try to dress herself in ridiculous clothes she didn't own to fit in with all these airheads. After the assembly was done, Nani stood up. You aren't staying for the reception? Ella asked. They'll have food. I have a headache, Nani lied, making her way out to the door. She didn't have the stomach for reception. She didn't know anyone, and she'd be stuck with her roommates, and besides, she had a plan to make. She had to talk to Raina. Surely she would know something about her father. Just as she was leaving, someone seemed to appear out of the shadows, and Nani stumbled. "Watch it," the tone was a spiteful warning, and Nani was taken aback as the girl turned. "It's you," Nani replied, recognizing the girl who knocked all of her books out of her hands that morning. But even as she said it, she knew something was wrong, while she was seeing the image for a distorted mirror. It was the eyes she saw first, sunk deep into her face. They had the same skin and tone of pale olive in the hair, rather than a rich brown, was mousy. The girl glanced at Nani as she disappeared into the corridor. "I see you've met my cousin," the voice came behind Nani, and when she turned around, there was Swenja. Nani remembered suddenly, this time the rich and colorful version of her. "Your cousin?" Nani repeated. Swenja shrugged. "That's Adelia. Not everyone in my family was lucky enough to be born with my stunning looks, so she does her best to copy." Swenja flashed Nani a big smile. Nani stood in the corridor, uncomfortable. Swenja's smile making her turn away as she felt something stir in her heart. She was the same height as Nani, her form leafy. Nani had always been big for her age, both in stature as well as shape, so it was strange to see someone who was as tall as her. The only girl no taller was Yuki, who towered above them all. "In a rush to lead the assembly?" Swenja asked, and Nani couldn't quite place her accent. Decidedly Eastern European, but she wasn't good enough with accents to place it. "I have a headache," Nani lied again. "I'll walk you to your room," Swenja said. "I don't feel like a party tonight either." They walked side by side. Nani didn't need help navigating the school. She'd already learned where everything was. She had always had a knack for learning directions, and this wasn't any different. Swenja followed in silence, and then finally they stood by her door. "This is it," Swenja said. "Safe at home. What do I get in return?" "I wasn't aware I needed to tip," said Nani. "I'll set the other payments," Swenja said. "Perhaps a secret?" Swenja grinned at her, kind of wolfish, but there was something untamed about that smile, something dangerous, something that spoke of the freedom to run wild in the woods, with no one to answer to. "I don't have any secrets." "No one is free of secrets. Nani, the new girl. I'll find out yours." "That sounds like a threat." Swenja smiled again, nudging Nani slightly toward the door. "I was going for welcoming, damn it. Let's try this again." This time Nani did laugh out loud. She couldn't help it. Swenja looked like she had just won a particularly difficult game of poker. Every part of her seemed both calculated and unbridled. Both things at once. It surprised Nani, and her stomach fluttered with a feeling she had no name for. "A girl with nothing to hide," Swenja said, enunciating the words, and it felt strange hearing her say it, like Nani did have things to hide, but couldn't hide them from her. "Tell me one thing then, Nani. Are you a fighter or a quitter?" Nani inhaled sharply. She was not a quitter. She'd go after what she wanted, and she had no time for chats with girls who were nothing like her and who liked playing games. "Thanks for walking with me," Nani said, and then shut the door on Swenja's face. When we were back to the door, she breathed in relief. The room wasn't much, but it was nice to have it to herself for a moment. Her bed contained only the bedsheets given to her by the school. Her bag was still sitting on top of the desk. Nani didn't know how to feel about living in the space that belonged to a dead girl. A dead friend. It made sense now. How Yuki and Rory were treating her. Why they weren't being overly friendly like the other girl, Ella. She didn't want to replace their friend. She didn't want to replace anyone at all because she wanted to find her father. She wanted him to take her away from here, to explain why he wasn't there and here when she'd thought they'd finally be in the same place together. She opened the wardrobe. Though it had been emptied out, there were a few clues that someone had lived there before. A ribbon, a sprawl of pink glitter at the bottom, the cabinet, a bag the color of aquamarine nearly hidden underneath the wardrobe, just at the edge poking out. Nani ignored it all and unzipped her bag, finally putting her clothes away. The moment she did, Rory came in through the door, stopping short. There was a hurt in her eyes, as if Nani taking the space was a betrayal. "There's a bag," Nani said, sliding it out and handing it over to Rory. "Here you go." Rory frowned. "I thought we'd emptied it out." For a moment she held the bag in her hand, seemingly at a loss. She took a quick peek inside, but then shoved it under her own bed with such force that Nani wondered how she didn't break anything. And as much as Nani hated to admit it, she understood Rory's hurt. Her taking over meant erasing a part of the past. Like Nani moving in meant she had to let go of her roommate. Tutu had told Nani to let go of her past too, that her father would show up soon enough. But letting go was a betrayal. To her father, to herself, letting go meant forgetting, and forgetting was wrong. Nani turned back, opened up another drawer, and slid in the few books she'd brought from her enormous collection at home. The scent of plumeras flowing from the pages. Her mother used to put flowers between the pages of every book she was reading, so she wouldn't forget the scent of her home. Nani let them go with a heavy thud. The heavy spine of Les Miserables cracked something in the wardrobe. There was a fake bottom in the drawer. She took the book out, peering curiously at the cracked wood. She found an edge and thought to pull it open. Inside revealed a book the size of a diary. Its cover was black, written in gold letters with a tree and 3 crows printed in an ornate frame, a book of fairy tales. "Here," Nani said, picking up the book and handing it to Rory, hoping it was the last thing. I think this belonged to your friend. Okay, everybody, that was the end of chapter 9. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good day. Bye.